However, gender reassignment surgeries are being performed on minors in certain hospitals, and it appears the mainstream media establishment is trying to normalize them. There's a lot of money to be made by conducting these dystopian and unnatural procedures, and perhaps that's why business executives from some of America's largest companies are totally on board with it. In fact, our next guest, Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell, details in this exclusive report for the Daily Signal how corporate executives from Costco, General Motors, T-Mobile, Procter Gamble, Wells Fargo, and Kroger sit on the boards of 12 different hospitals that have provided these irreversible procedures. This also includes providing hormone treatments such as puberty blockers, once again, which are irreversible. Thankfully, though, Trump has vowed to ban transgender procedures for minors without parental consent. And just before the election, when Elizabeth asked Vice President-elect J.D. Vance about whether or not a Trump-Vance administration would consider banning them in all cases with or without parental consent, here's how he and the crowd reacted.
Hi, Senator Vance. This is Elizabeth Mitchell from the Daily Signal. Former President Trump has said that he would ban transgender procedures for minors without parental consent. Would the... Would the Trump-Vance administration consider banning sex changes for minors in all cases with or without parental consent?
Well, look, I think sex changes for minors, permanently altering either chemically or surgically the body of a young child, is crazy. I can't believe that we do this. I really can't. And I think it's so sad for these poor kids who, you know, they're teenagers, they're adolescents, maybe some of them, you know, in really bizarre cases are even preteens. We used to in this country recognize that adolescence was a tough time to grow up, that we try to encourage people to accept themselves. Now you have some very sick people who, when an adolescent is struggling with a problem, they say, no, don't accept yourself. Go and surgically alter yourself. I think that's an insane way to talk to our young people, and we ought to stop doing it.
Joining us now to discuss is Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell, a reporting fellow for the Daily Signal. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So your article, thank you, by the way, for talking about this. Like J.D. Vance just said there, I just cannot believe this is happening in modern America. But alas, here it is. So tell us, what's going on with these giant companies like Costco having executives on the boards of these hospitals? I mean, what do you make of that?
It's very shocking. Some of the top people at America's biggest companies, like you said, Costco, Kroger, T-Mobile, Procter Gamble, those executives also sit on the boards of children's hospitals that are among the top offenders for child sex changes. So what a child sex change entails is puberty blockers, hormone regimens, and sometimes these irreversible surgeries. And it really is shocking to hear that these executives are, in a way, complicit in this practice that is clearly bad for children and is opposed by the vast majority of their consumers.
Yeah, certainly. I'd like to ask you also about some of the research here and what you found. I mean, how widespread is this, and what can you tell us about these hospitals?
There are hospitals all across the country that are partaking in these procedures and have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like you said, it's financially very lucrative for these hospitals. Do No Harm, a medical watchdog, released a database a few weeks ago outlining all the different hospitals that do these procedures and how many patients they have, I guess we could say, treated for the gender dysphoria by these irreversible procedures that sometimes are sterilizing. You can see that Costco is an example of an executive who is on the board of one of these hospitals, and at Seattle Children's Hospital, it's happening all across the country. And I think a lot of people don't believe that this is happening. A lot of people don't believe that children really are going through these procedures to attempt to change their gender. But this database and this report shows that it really is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to ask you as well, because here's what I don't understand. So you have all these corporate executives that are getting involved in these hospitals. I mean, why? Just for what possible purpose?
I would hope, I don't know if
Yeah.
this is something that they're passionate about. I would hope that they were just trying to be on a children's hospital board and do a good thing for children. And then I would assume as board members, they're aware of this is happening at these hospitals. I reached out to them. Unfortunately, none of the companies got back to me to confirm or deny if they were aware that child sex changes were happening at these hospitals. But I think regardless of whether or not they knew before, I think this report really makes that clear that this is something that's happening at those hospitals, and those executives really have a responsibility now to speak out and say, I do not support this. My company and my company's consumers do not support it. And I will either step down or you're going to have to change this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you're sort of being generous here. Let's give these folks maybe the benefit of the doubt, because maybe they don't really understand the full extent of what's going on. But even still, the very fact that it's happening at hospitals at all is really just quite shocking. You mentioned this group, Do No Harm. I mean, whatever happened to that principle in medicine? I just don't understand. And my heart goes out to these kids who actually might be confused. Maybe they are suffering with gender dysphoria. They don't know what to make of themselves. They're really lost. And then all of a sudden, licensed medical professionals condone these mutilation procedures. I mean, it's really on them. And when you've got some 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid who's really struggling, and then you have adult, matured medical professionals who are pushing for this stuff or even just allowing it to happen, I really think there's a lot of responsibility that lies with them, and maybe they're pushing it for the money. But I'd like to ask you, I mean, why do you think these hospitals are going through with this? Do you think it's about profit? Do you think it's about ideology? Is it about something else? I mean, what could it possibly be?
I think it likely would depend on the doctor in the hospital. I think that you're totally right that there really is a financial incentive for this. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being spent by parents because parents believe that their child might commit suicide if they don't let them undergo these gender procedures. And so they're spending hundreds of thousands to change the child's gender. And then if the child changes their mind and wants to go back to their biological sex, then that's thousands and thousands more dollars that would be paid to the hospital. So the doctors definitely have a lot to gain, and they're telling parents, they're scaring parents that if you don't let your child do this, your child will commit suicide. You can either have a dead daughter or a living son, is what they're telling these parents, or vice versa. So I think they really are scaring parents into churning out a lot of money for their children to undergo something that they very likely might regret when they're older.
Wow. I mean, that's just, I think you're right about that, but that really is just concerning to me. And it brings me to another question. I mean, what inspired you to start covering this stuff?
I think that it's something that a lot of people don't know or don't believe is happening in America, that children are being told that you were born a boy, but you might have been born in the wrong body and maybe you should change that. I think that it's just horrifying that children are being taught that at such a young age. And I think raising awareness about the fact that this is happening and that it's so widespread across the country is really important so that parents can be aware and be on guard against radical gender ideology.
Absolutely. Now, I'm hoping that your work here in this article is going to hope to move the needle and really show people, number one, it's exposure, right? Just showing people this is really happening. This is modern America, okay? It is disgusting, but this is happening. And then number two, getting to that change, right? Getting some of these executives to sort of recuse themselves or move away from these hospitals or maybe condemn what's going on. So what do you think? I mean, do you think this could really move the needle in that sense?
I really hope so. I think that any sort of awareness about these child sex changes can be really helpful in putting some pressure on those executives that your consumers now know that you support this, and your consumers very likely don't support it. The vast majority of Americans do not support gender transitions for children, and I'm sure that includes customers of Costco, T-Mobile, all the others. And I hope that that pressure from consumers will cause those executives to hopefully renounce this practice, which, like you said, is experimental. We don't even know how bad it is for kids, but we know that it can have very lifelong negative effects.
Absolutely. We've turned these kids into weird lab experiments. It's like these kids are being treated like mice in a Skinner box or something. It really is just so dystopian to me, and I think it speaks so much about the fact that, I mean, what's going on with a lot of the modern medical establishment. I think we really need to take a close look at that, especially with the incoming administration, because I can't imagine it's safe. I can't imagine it's healthy, and we've seen a lot of kids at this point detransition or move away from that after the fact because they regret it, because they realize that was not the right decision. And now they're going to have to live with the consequences of permanently life-altering procedures. Maybe that means they can't have kids. Maybe it means something else. But that really is horrific to think about the damage that is being done to our nation's youth. So thank you for covering this, and thank you for sharing your thoughts.